Today we're going to be going over the eyes and ears portion of the elephant project, and we're going to go through this fast, so pay attention. You're going to start out with a wad of clay, and I'll give that to you, but if not, it just needs to be about the size of the palm of your hand, kind of mashed flat. And then you're going to wedge it flat, which I usually tell you not to do, but once you get it wedged relatively flat, not completely flat, you're going to take a knife and you're going to cut it into almost a teardrop shape. And then you're going to wedge it again. The reason we're wedging it is because we want those edges to be thin and tapered. I'm going to reshape it a little bit as I go, make sure to maintain that rough teardrop shape. And then I'm going to cut it in half. As you can see, the middle of the clay is quite thick, whereas the edges are pretty thin and tapered, and that is exactly what we want. If your clay is way too thin, it won't hold structure, so you need it to have a little bit of meat in the middle, otherwise it's not going to hang on. And you are going to bend it back approximately like this, fitting the curve to the curve of the pad of your thumb. And then hold it up to your elephant to check for sizing. Don't want it to be too big, but every time you trim it, you want to thin out those edges. And I'm almost going to pull them off like little pieces of paper just to make them a little raggedy. Elephant ears are quite wrinkly, and the edges of ears are quite thin, almost paper thin. I'm also going to smooth out the canvas texture from the ears. It's a common mistake that I see people leaving that wedged canvas texture on their ears. It's not very attractive and it's hard to cover later, so take it off now, rub it out with your finger. And once I make sure that that fits, I'm going to slip and score to attach. Now the thing with the ear is that you're slipping and scoring the inside curve that your thumb was fitting in earlier. That's important. You're not attaching the side, you're not doing the back, you're doing the front of the ear that is bent backwards and around the head. Double check before it's completely attached. And then you're just going to press it onto the head and smooth out the back. Just pull that ear into the head so that it's flush. Remove any extra, but try not to remove too much because you don't have a lot to work with here. I'm going to take one of my sculpting tools and I'm going to bond the inside seam. Now you know how much we don't like seams in this class, especially when we are sculpting like this. So we need to kind of smooth that out, make it a little bit rounded, but bond it just enough so that it's stronger. I'm also going to dig out behind the ear a bit so that the ear doesn't completely blend in with the head and the shoulder. You do not want your ear attached to the body. You only want it attached to the head. And if you have it attached to the body or the shoulder, if it's just too far down, take the tip of your needle tool and dig some of that out so that you don't have that problem. Your ear is not attached to your shoulder, so neither should this elephant's. The rest of it is just shaping, and these are delicate and you are going to want to be careful. A common problem, though, is that little back area. Once you've bent it into shape, you're going to have a crease. So I'm going to take a little strip of clay and I'm going to lay it up the back. I don't need to slip and score necessarily because I didn't take that long attaching my ear. It's still pretty wet. If you're worried, slip and score anyway, better safe than sorry. But then I'm just going to blend that in and smooth it out and fine tune it. Make sure not to shove it out of place too much. It is delicate. Blow dry it once you've got it attached, but only blow dry the back. Don't blow dry the front because the front is where we need to attach the eyes, and that's what we're doing next. When you figure out the placement for your eyes, you're going to look your elephant in the face directly straight. You cannot place your eyes if you look at your elephant from the side or the top or any other possible angle. You have to be looking it directly in its tiny little cute face. Otherwise, those eyes are going to be uneven, unbalanced. One's going to be higher than the other. It'll look horrifying. So make sure that you're looking at the front and make sure that those are even. I'm going to take a really fine-tipped tool, and you could use a toothpick for this or, one of the special tools in my special magic box for this, whatever. But then you are going to essentially slip and score a very, very tiny piece of clay on here. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. Then I'm gonna stick it with my tool and I'm going to press it onto the eye. Now that is massive, and that's okay because we're gonna trim it down. It's better to have more and take it down, because when we bond it, again, the rule is you always lose about 30% of the clay whenever you bond something to another piece, and that's why that eye is so large right now. We're gonna trim it down and we're gonna add an eyebrow bone here shortly, but for right now, I'm just gonna take a flat-ended magic tool and just kind of press it down occasionally. A common problem that I see is that people almost mash this down to a non-existent state. Don't overdo it. You still want to be able to see the eye. You don't want it to be perfectly round necessarily either. You can angle it. And once you have the general shape, you are going to take a tiny, tiny piece of clay afterward to make the eyebrow bone, and I mean tiny. And you're going to set it above and almost slightly on top of that eyeball that you just blended in. And we're just going to press it there with our finger for right now. And then take another tool. This could be your needle tool, this could be one of my magic tools, and sorry for the focus here, I kept focusing on the back of the tool. But we're just going to blend the top part of that eyebrow bone into the head. Very subtle, and again, you don't want to overdo this because there's not much there. If you're losing 30% of something that isn't really there, it's very easy to get rid of it entirely, so be careful, don't overblend this. But you're just gonna blend that out into his head, carefully angling that eyelid, essentially, touching up the bottom of your eye as needed to sharpen the distinction between the eye and the actual side of the face. Take your time with this. The eyes are usually what make or break an elephant project. It's very easy to make them look hideous or slightly crazed and manic, so please take care when doing this. You want that eyebrow bone to sit low enough above the eye that it looks natural, not like he looks surprised or not that he looks angry, unless you want an angry elephant, in which case, go for it. But be careful, the details matter here. And notice that I haven't sprayed this either. I want this to kind of harden up. It's not a lot of clay, so it'll dry out relatively quickly, and that's okay. The more it dries and the quicker it gets to a leather hard state, the more detail work I can do because it'll stop holding all of those little marks like fingerprints. And then past that, it's really just details. Once you have the ears and the eyes on, the rest of it's up to you. You could carve wrinkles into their knees or their trunk. You could add tusks if you wanted to, and I can show you how to do that in class if you're so interested. As you can see, I'm using a spoon to burnish the elephant, and burnishing compacts clay and makes it shiny once it's leather hard. It's a nice little finishing technique if you want to, but your finger works just as well.